And the big news, big news that we had this week is that the GitHub MCP registry is now here. So this is the fastest and best way to discover AI tools, MCP servers, and one-click install them. If you go to this short link here, gh.io/MCP registry, you will be taken to the new GitHub MCP registry. Let's say I want to install the GitHub's MCP server, right? I can click this install button here and do install in VS Code or install in VS Code Insiders. That's one way to do it. I can also click the tile to go to the documentation for the MCP server. And it's very important to read the documentation, right? Because even if you one-click install the MCP server in your IDE, you sometimes need an API key. You sometimes need special access to another tool. You sometimes need to start a dev container to use the MCP server. So make sure you're reading the documentation here on how to use the MCP servers that you're installing. For the GitHub MCP server, because we have a remote MCP server, we can one-click install and we should be in business. So you can click this install button here. I'm going to click install in VS Code, open up VS Code, and then you'll see that it routes us to the MCP server in VS Code. I can now click on the install button here, and then it's going to ask me to authenticate with my GitHub account. I'm going to click allow, and then I'm going to select Lady Kerr here because I'm already signed in on VS Code. Let's test it out. If I click on this tools button here, and now we have the GitHub MCP server installed from the MCP registry. How amazing is that?
This year is the biggest universe yet. It's almost 3 times bigger than any universe.
If I had to describe GitHub Universe with one word, I would say enriching. It's Nerd Super Bowl.
The candy machine, the different booths, the different games. It's just a holistic experience.
Demos and donuts.
The branding, the people here.
The effort that went into making it look good, it's beautiful. Like the artwork, the design.
Good morning. It's so great to be here with all of you.
We see a lot of these folks at conferences all around the world, but it's something about Universe, something magical happens.
I loved the keynote today because it really brought in a lot of the things that make GitHub so remarkable. It really made the developer experience front and center.
Universe is a great time to share nerdy things with nerddom.
There's a little video game station where you can get the bugs before they come into your code base. There was a really nice photo opportunity where they took moving photos of us.
All the tools that you hear about, all the interesting mainstream tools, they're all here. And I come here and then see the people working on it and then actually see the demos.
GitHub does care about and get developers and understands that there is more than one type of developer.
We've got everyone from around the world coming to just enjoy software.
Hello, world! Welcome to Open Source Friday, the show where we talk to maintainers about the apps that they're maintaining. Happy Friday, folks. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm here in Chicago, where it's actually a really nice and sunny day out. Where are you joining from? I'd love to know in the chat. Just let us know below. And today we have a really good show for you. I know I say that all the time. It's because I believe it. I believe every show is a really good show. So today's an especially really good one because we're chatting with the maintainers from Varlock. And Varlock allows you to share your .env files with your team. So I'm super excited to learn about how this is built, why it was built, and how we can use it. So we have Phil and Theo here from the Varlock team, and I'm just gonna pop them up here so we can get going. Hey, y'all.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, welcome to the stream. Yes, yo, hello. I love seeing these comments coming in. So joining from India, hi, hello from Mexico. Welcome, y'all. So let's get into it because time flies when we're having fun. So first things first, tell us about yourself and I'll popcorn over to Phil.
Sweet. So I'd say a recovering engineering manager / full stack developer. I'd say my most recent role before founding this company with Theo is a DevRel engineer. So kind of been all around the stack. The most recent 2 companies were DevTools companies like Daily.co, and I was an engineering manager at DigitalOcean. So definitely a big fan of developer tools and developer infrastructure. And in my spare time, musician, cyclist, trail runner, just trying to do whatever I can.
Nice. I love that you included in my spare time. This is what I do outside of work. So important. Theo.
Hi, I'm Theo. I live outside of Vancouver. I've been doing software development since I was a kid. Mostly web kind of focused stuff, but really all over the stack, front end, back end. I've had my own startups, done really a bit of everything. A lot of design and product stuff as well. Most recently, I was working for a company called System Initiative, doing some really, really cool stuff around DevOps and infrastructure as code, or rather, how to do infrastructure without infrastructure as code. And before that, at a company called Clay, that's doing really well at the moment, doing kind of sales automation, AI stuff, both really cool companies. And just always have loved building tools for other developers, and finally took the plunge to do it full time for myself. with Phil here. Yeah, I have a daughter and a dog, and so I don't have much free time, but yeah.
I love that. I love that. So nice to have you both here on the show. I am so excited to learn about Varlock. I can't even tell you. And we were actually chatting behind the scenes. And while I was showing off the MCP registry, which is now available, go to gh.io/MCP registry to try that out. Phil here was telling me that we can use Varlock to inject our API keys into our MCP servers. And I was like, whoa, that would be a really, really good demo. So very excited to learn about Varlock and how I can add it to my workflow as a developer advocate. But tell us the story of Varlock. Let's start at the beginning. Why did you build it? What problem were you trying to solve?
Yeah, I mean, I can give a little bit of background, and it starts because so both of the last two companies I worked for, System Initiative and Clay, both have this idea of sort of like typed data and these reactive graphs of data. So, you understand that, hey, this thing's an email address, this thing's a company name, or, in the IAC world, this is going to be a URL, this is going to be, whatever, IAM rules, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
When you change one thing, it, needs to run a function and flow through this big graph. I started thinking about, how could we apply this to just configuration in general? And after sort of solving this configuration problem over and over for myself on every project, you end up wiring together, 5 different tools, and the end result is it's fine. It's not great. It's good enough, but it's never good. You're still kind of not doing it the right way. And so we just started kind of digging deep into this problem and saying, how can we just solve this once and for all in a way that makes the easy way the right way, the secure way, and that's going to work in all projects, regardless of what language you're in, regardless of if you're in a monorepo, if you're storing your secrets, on your cloud provider or in 1Password or in an encrypted file, whatever. Like, how can we just give people the toolkit that's going to let them do whatever they want easily without writing a bunch of custom code on every single project?
Nice. I love that.
And also to sort of, like, a lot of these in this DevOps IAC world, people talk about shifting left. Like we wanted to approach this from the perspective of starting left. Like, how do you build these tools for the truly for the developer first, integration first, and then figure out how to scale it up to the org? And we think that's pretty novel.
Love. Yeah, I've never heard of the idea of starting left. And I love that, especially as developers, like once we build, it's been difficult for us to go back and then inject those security like guardrails that we need to always have. So starting left, like starting with security in mind, love that concept. So let's just get right into the demo of Varlock. I'm gonna pop your screen on here and take it away.
Awesome. Okay, so what I have here is like a typical, although very simple, .env.example file. And you can see that, we can talk about basically some of the problems that we normally encounter with this. So like, sorry, one sec. So first of all, there's sort of a weird mix of like real values like this and placeholders, right? It's unclear what's going to be a placeholder, what's a real value that you're meant to use, what you should change. It's unclear which of these things are sensitive. Some of them are, this is obviously not sensitive. This API key is going to be, some of the sort of schema of this information just lives in comments, right? Like, hey, you should really fill this in. There's documentation in here. And, what are you meant to do with this? Okay, copy this file to .env, ask Bob for the secrets, right? Turn to the person that joined last and ask them, hey, can you send me like the environment variables? Because I can't even boot up my dev server, right? And what happens? You're not supposed to send it over Slack, but you send it over Slack because it's the easiest thing to do, right? So like, what else is going on? I'm going to copy paste this file, and then I now have 2 copies of it, right? So it's very easy for it to get out of sync. Where does the documentation go? This comment, is it going to go in here? Is it going to go in the code where I use it? Is it going to go in a README? Like there's no single source of truth. You know, if I'm smart and I'm doing it, you know, right, I'm going to add some validation. So is that some custom validation rules every time you go to use it? Hey, check if it's empty. I need to coerce it. You know, this is supposed to be a number, but you know, the environment variable is a string. So where does that live? Often you're turning to a third-party validation library. Works fine, but you know, it's custom stuff. It's a decision I have to make. I have to pull that in. And then if I need to go use that, say, in a script rather than in my main thing, now I need to wire that up to do it, you know, there as well. If I'm in a monorepo, there's no easy way to sort of share stuff. You know, if I'm in a, if I've got sort of different services, even in like an all JavaScript sort of monorepo, you might have a totally different config setup in, you know, a Next.js front-end app versus in a back-end app. Like you often are working with multiple sort of config systems and tool chains, especially if you have a polyglot repo. So like, how can we make this, you know, a unified system that is going to give me validation, coercion, you know, type safety, right? If I want type safety, I'm probably going to be hand rolling those types or relying on that validation library. You know, so I want a single source of truth. I want a unified system for sensitive and non-sensitive config. I want to be able to share stuff across a monorepo. I want to be able to pull from different backends. Ideally, I want to keep secrets out of plain text entirely so that there's no chance of leaking them to, you know, AI assistants or file backups, whatever. So, and, you know, at the end of the day, what ends up happening is I think we just avoid using .env whenever we can. We'll put like the bare minimum in there because, you know, you don't want to add a new key and then disrupt the whole team by making sure that they all have the new value or things getting out of sync, right? So, yeah, I mean, we want a better system, and let's actually take a look at what we can do with varlock. So I'm going to run, normally I would run pnpm dlx, which downloads and executes varlock init. I'm going to actually just run it locally because I've got a couple changes in my local stuff, but that's fine. So we'll go varlock init. Okay, so this is going to tell me I've used the env example to create a new .env.schema file. And this is like env example meant to be committed. It's going to tell me, hey, you should really review it. And it's going to give me some pointers about kind of what to do. But there's lots more documentation. So let's take a look at what it generated for us. Okay, so here's our .env.schema file. And you can see at the top here, this is some comments. We call this a special header. This is this sort of like intro comment block. It ends with a divider. And in this header, we are going to put these, what we call root decorators. And so these root decorators affect everything. So some of these might affect all the items, you know, what's the default requiredness of my items. In this case, infer is going to say, if there's a value here, I'm going to assume it's required. If it's not, I'm going to assume it's not. But I can then override individual items as well. You can see with this required decorator on the item. So, you know, required equals true or equals false. Just saying at required is same as saying required equals true.
And just to take a step back here too. Yeah. So this whole like syntax in these comments is an open specification that we created. We call it spec. So anyone could adopt this if they wanted to, but it's kind of the underpinning of all of this.
Yeah. And I mean, the varlock itself, like spec itself doesn't really know what to do with the decorators and all that, but it just specifies, you know, what is the syntax of, you know, having a decorator, you know, how to deal with quotes and values and things like that. And, you know, we built our own parser that actually parses this and you know, turns it into an AST and all that. Yeah, so we can also see there's another root decorator here, generate types. This is saying, hey, at the end, when I go run this thing, I want to generate TypeScript types. You know, the language is TypeScript. Here's the path. You can imagine generating types for other languages as well, right? So this is not a only JavaScript tool. So now this is the sort of header with those root decorators. And now we have some items. And you can see that we inject this kind of example item just to give you an idea of what to do. We can actually just delete this. And you can see for the other items that we were able to infer some information to get you started, right? We assume this is a port number because the name was port. We infer some stuff based on the keys, based on the values, right? We know this is a URL. We know this is probably sensitive because it, is API key. And so this really should get you going, and then, you should review it. You can add more decorators as you go. The more decorators you add, the better your schema gets, right? But you don't have to add a ton right away. So let's finish this init. Have you reviewed it? Yes. Should we delete your example file? We'll leave it for now, but it's not going to do anything anymore. Okay, great. It's saying you can actually run load. So let's run varlock load. Okay, we get this really nicely formatted output. It tells us what's the current state of our environment variables. You can see that, you can see which are required. You can see that this is sensitive. You can see that because it's sensitive, we've redacted the value here. So this is totally safe to put in CI, right? So in our CI, we have this as a step. So if you're debugging and going, what the hell is going on? You can actually see what is the current state of my configuration when this ran.
Okay, so I have a question. I
Yeah.
have so many questions already.
Yeah.
But let's start with one. Tell me more about the env spec. How is varlock using env spec to enforce validation?
So env spec is just sort of the syntax that lets us add these decorators.
Okay.
It doesn't inherently really do anything. Like that parser just parses it and then passes it back to varlock. Varlock then interprets it and says, oh, this is required. So when I actually go and load the thing, I can check, hey, is this required? If it's empty,
Gotcha.
throw an error.
And we have a VS Code extension, so that's why you're getting the nice syntax highlighting in these comments here.
Yeah, so actually if I change this to shell, you can see this is what you would normally get. But if I change this to use our VS Code extension, we get this nice highlighting. We also get comment continuation. So if I hit enter here, it's gonna, add this as another comment line. And you can see that, it's pretty intuitive. Like if you give this to somebody that has never seen this before, they should probably mostly get what's going on. Because of that, AI is pretty good. That isn't a real thing, that at description, but it's sounds reasonable, right? So and if you feed it our LLMs, our website, the LLMs info, it does actually do a pretty good job.
Nice. And do the schema files stay in sync across environments, like prod or staging or dev?
Yeah, so the idea is that the schema is fixed. So, and if I want to have different values for different environments, we can just actually show you that right now. So
yeah,
there's a tool called .env and a bunch of these other web frameworks will automatically load a .env .development, .env .production, etc., based on the current sort of either command, like if we're doing a build, or based on node-env. We don't recommend using node-env to trigger that stuff because node-env has other implications around how things get installed. So what we have is a new decorator called env-flag. We usually recommend something like app-env. Right now, I'm going to add a new item called app-env. We'll say, hey, it's development. Let's say its type is an enum. Let's make it development, production, test, stage, or preview, right? We don't have to mark it as required because it's inferring that already. So now what's going to happen is, this value is there, and it's going to automatically now look for a .env.development. So if I add one, and let's say XYZ API rel equals, dev API. If I load this now, we're going to have this load. So like those other tools, you can use multiple files to load things per environment. Now, some people hate that pattern and are saying, why are you putting sensitive configuration in these files to begin with? And it's well, we're not going to put anything sensitive in there. You can still use a sensitive ignored file like development.local, and this would be ignored, this wouldn't. So you can put stuff in there if you want to. Well, what's interesting is the other thing that nspec introduces is a new, what we call function call syntax. So let me show you an example of that. So here's an item where I'm going to call out to shell to the shell and call the 1Password CLI, and it's going to fetch an item from 1Password. And we should see it's going to pop up the thing. I'll scan my finger, and it will pull this value, from 1Password. Now it's hidden because it's sensitive. So you can imagine a committed .env.production where you're not putting any values, but you're putting these declarative instructions about how to go and get those values, which means that anyone on the team, even if they don't have access to that, production vault or, wherever it's stored, they could still understand where it's coming from. And it's still all tracked through Git, which I think is super valuable.
And it means in CI, you could validate the configuration of those environments before you do a deployment, right? So if you override that end flag to be production, you could validate the production configuration in a GitHub action, for example.
Yeah, on a branch where it gets merged.
And we have a GitHub action, so you could do that in CI.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And speaking of GitHub action, so what is the varlock advantage over GitHub actions, or do they just work in sync?
So, I mean, they definitely work in sync. We have a varlock GitHub action. So like if you have an M schema file or a .env file that's committed, obviously with no secrets in it, it will automatically emit that into the GitHub actions, sort of like, I forget the name of it, but that, the variable that stores all the environment variables in GitHub actions. And it will automatically mark secrets as secrets. It'll automatically redact those. And you can optionally get this nice output that you see here in the terminal. So it makes it easier to debug issues because you get this pretty printed report of your environment. And go ahead, Theo. Yeah.
Oh, just I think what you're asking is, how it, rather than using GitHub secrets, right? Like their sort of secret management stuff. And like what you can imagine is, often you'll end up having to manage these secrets in a bunch of different places in GitHub. And, say you have multiple sort of hosting systems where you're putting this stuff. Like the term there is called secret sprawl. And, for one thing, it's a little bit dangerous because your secrets are going out to many different places, but it also just becomes hard to manage. So you can imagine, using varlock, you might still go into GitHub actions and put in, the 1Password service account token as the one sort of secret zero that then grants access to everything else. But varlock would then go and fetch everything else for you from a single source of truth, and that single source of truth is working not only in GitHub, but also, where it's deployed and for developers and on their local machines and everywhere.
But you don't have to do that either. So like there's kind of like a progressive way to, enhance the schema. So if you're a heavy user of GitHub and you're already using GitHub secrets and all, you've got your stuff already in there, this will work. So it'll load those as overrides. So you don't have to do anything to make it work out of the box aside from, this schema we showed you.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes. You have any more questions or should I continue?
No, keep going.
So let's show a little validation stuff. So like here, I'll make this port. Here, I'll just delete it, right? You can see now that you get, hey, it's empty, but it's required. A nice, clear message rather than some weird, runtime crash when that code gets accessed. Right? I'll make it like negative, and it'll tell me that it knows that port's supposed to be a number, right? Like in this range. It's already doing the coercion, right, from this, which is, a string, into a number, and then, it will sort of re-emit it as a number, all that. So you just get like nice error messages that are clear instead of these cryptic runtime crashes, which is very nice.
And the idea here is it's failing fast and it's failing way earlier in the dev cycle. So you're kind of eliminating an entire class of errors, right? Or dealing with those paper cuts of like day one getting set up where, before you'd have to follow a README and pull things from 5 different sources. Now it's all in one place and you can reason about it pretty simply. Yep. And AI can also see this output and fix it for you, hopefully.
Yeah. And yeah, so one other thing that's cool that's going on is because of this generate types decorator, when I actually run the resolution process, it's spitting out this TypeScript file. And it looks a little crazy because of these inlined SVGs, but you know, you're not offering it. So let's actually take a look at kind of the IntelliSense that you get. You get this nice, you know, you get the types, you get a little icon, you get any description that's there. Like we can look at this one, you know, with any comments that you've put there. It knows whether it's required or not. So it knows if it can be undefined. So, and you can see that this is just like a normal TypeScript file. There's no crazy voodoo going on to like infer the types from this crazy giant function call object. And, you know, which it's very impressive what you can do with Zod and with those things. But when things go wrong, you tend to get pretty weird errors. And the IntelliSense you get is never going to be this nice because you can't like add descriptions and add documentation links and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, show docs URLs, for example.
Yeah, so here, let's go in here. We'll say, what is it? Docs URL equals this docs. Oh, get rid of this. Let's see, XYZ, here we go. Right, so now we have a nice link to documentation. And so you can see like the more work you put into your schema, the nicer your experience is for everybody.
Yeah.
So I can now show you sort of how we would actually go and use this thing in an actual code base. So right here I have, doesn't matter. Here's a very, very simple like Fastify app. So if you're not a JavaScript developer, it's just like, it's like Express. It's like a really basic API server. So if I go pnpm start, that's basically just going to boot up this file. It's going to yell at me because of this like custom validation logic where I'm checking, you know, is it there, coerce it into a number. I can do varlock run, which is going to load all the config, resolve it, validate it, and then inject it as environment variables into my process. So that can obviously work for anything, doesn't have to be JavaScript. So we'll see this is now going to inject that port. And you can see it's working. This 444 is coming from my environment files, right? So like right away, I can remove some of this extra logic, right? Because I know that it's going to be there. I know that it's already validated. I still, if I'm using process end, would have to coerce it because it's still going to be injected as a string. But we can kind of go one step further. So let's add this. I'll add this auto load import. So now I don't need to run it via varlock run anymore. I can just do pnpm start and it's going to call out to, you know, our thing, load everything. This is similar to kind of .env has sort of, you know, or .env.register or something like that. And so you can see it's still working. So, you know, now I can get rid of this check. And this is still coming in as a string, but if I take it one step further, I can import this helper. So importing this env from varlock env, and now instead of using process.env, I can use this, and we can see env dot. Sometimes TypeScript gets a little slow. Env dot. No, why are you not happy? Well, that's not working for some reason right now. There we go. Okay, so you can see this IntelliSense is through, right? So these are all of my environment variables with all the documentation. You can see what's going on. And I want to show you one other cool thing, which is that, so I'm going to boot up this thing and I'm going to hit this URL. I'll hit it over here. And you can see that this secret key was being console logged and we've automatically redacted it from your logs. So because we know exactly what the values are and which ones are sensitive, we can take action with that information. So we patch global console methods, and we actually also patch some HTTP methods. So if I try and now return it as part of the, this isn't right, we'll do end dot API key, then we'll actually get a crash. It'll stop me from leaking that completely.
Nice.
And you can opt out of that behavior, but it's in JavaScript. If you do this auto load, it's at least the default, because we think sort of safety as the default is probably wise.
Nice. So to use it, just to summarize, to use it in any of our projects, we install the tool in, I guess, using PNPM or NPM, whatever you're using. You set up your environment schema, right? And you set up your, your different environment files, so like NV dev, NV prod, etc. And then you just go forth and use it. You can import the varlock autoloader, and you can import the env from varlock as well, and that's it.
Yeah, and so I mean the integration levels kind of vary on a framework by framework basis, but if you look at the docs, you'll see the specifics there. Some are more full featured than others, depending on if there's a plugin system that we can patch into. And then we also have standalone binaries. So, if you just want to install it as a CLI and use that varlock run command to inject it into, like a Python process or something, you can totally do that as well. And you don't have to worry about NPM and PNPM.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of cases, especially like kind of full stacky JavaScript frameworks, you're just going to like install a plugin, and that's pretty much it. And it's going to work as well with like live reloading when the end files change and things like that. Like Next, Vite, Astro, all of these things, you just add this plugin and you're pretty much done.
Love that Astro's included. I'm a big Astro fan.
These docs are made with Astro.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Someone says this looks more friendly over HashiCorp Vault. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you could use Vault as a storage, as a permanent storage mechanism or a secret persistence layer. But yeah, in terms of the developer experience, we think it's better. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Vault is, if you're a solo developer or a small team, like you're probably not going to set up Vault. Like it's going to be too much work. And like, if you don't want to set it up and host it yourself, the pricing is very expensive, right? So like we want a tool that is going to work. I mean, and this is true of, I would say, all of the sort of enterprise kind of, key management things that are out there. They only make sense for a big enterprise, a big team, and they are very costly. And so what we set out to do was build a tool that was going to make sense to use all the time, whether you're a single developer. Obviously these problems of syncing things and all that aren't as big when you're a single developer, but it's still like you want to set it up the right way. You still want to be secure. So we want the tool that's going to start with, a very small team and then scale up to a large enterprise.
Love, 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 love. So we have Andre here saying that's really useful. It's quite a nightmare to deal with .env files that you usually don't have a good way to share in the team. Exactly.
Yeah. So that whole, let's replace m.example with m.schema is meant to solve that problem. That sort of like config drift, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like something that's coming, like some of the next features that we're going to be putting out is a plugin system. So right now, to sort of call out to those external tools, you'd have to use this exec command and call it to CLI. But a plugin system would make those integrations, not only faster, but also just better. So, there could be a plugin for 1Password or a plugin for pulling from, AWS Secrets Manager and things like that. So, and another one would be like an encrypted file like SOPs or, some of these other tools. So the sort of how do I actually sync the sensitive secrets between team members then becomes very easy.
Nice. So can you tell us again, how does varlock prevent accidental logging of secrets? Just to make it super clear.
Yeah, so because varlock knows the exact values and which of those values are sensitive, what we do is we patch global console methods, and right before the thing gets logged, if we find any of those sensitive values, we will redact them.
Yeah.
And we redact them in the output of our CLI methods as well.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, like, how is varlock doing all that behind the scenes?
Yeah, so we're actually patching the global console methods. So like we like grab the global console object, and then there's a bunch of different methods on them, and then we sort of override those methods with versions that take the input, redact it, and then pass it back to the original method.
Incredible.
And I'll be honest, it's pretty tough to make this work all the time.
Yeah.
There's the matrix of JavaScript runtimes and places where things get hosted, and all the things that are going on makes this stuff really, really tricky.
Yes.
We've done our best, and it's not 100% foolproof, but right now there's no protection. So giving you 95% protection, I think is much better than nothing.
Yeah, and on the note of the leak detection, because so many of these frameworks now have really blurry lines between where things are rendered, both the client and the server, and it's really easy for things to sort of cross those boundaries. We thought that this was an important feature to give you the guardrails there as well.
Totally. Leaking this API key from an API endpoint, you're probably not going to do that, right? It's possible, but it's unlikely. But when you're, building a Next or an Astro app or a Remix, where you have a single file that's accessing, that's running code both in the back end and in the front end, it's not necessarily clear where each block of code is getting run. It's not clear how this stuff is getting compiled. There's so much magic going on. So, instead of trying to do this with, prefixes on the keys and things like that, we're just let's just let you tell us which items are sensitive, and then just protect you from doing the wrong thing no matter what. It's just a much easier way to think about it.
Nice. Okay, let's see. So someone says, I imagine this could really help with key rotations.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is to, either provide our own shared secret vault that you could use, or hook into other places, being able to reach into, with write privileges into something like 1Password or Amazon or whatever. And ideally, the plan is that, we'll be able to understand, hey, this is a, whatever, AWS, access key, right? And maybe have logic on that key that would let us have a local tool that says hey, I got to rotate that, or just rotate everything, right? Or have audit logs so which keys have been accessed by which team members, so when somebody leaves, hey, I need to know which things this person has been exposed to and rotate them all.
Or even do dynamic keys every time you deploy, depending on the possibilities there.
Nice. Love it. Are there any performance impact to using varlock?
So I mean, in general, just use it itself, no. I mean, there's going to be a slight hit when it boots up to actually do the resolution and the validation and all that. The resolution, it depends on where that stuff's coming from, right? If you're fetching it from a remote server, then that obviously is going to take a little bit of time. We will, once we start building that plugin system, there will be some caching logic there as well, so it can minimize it. The patching of the global console methods and of the HTTP stuff, there is a slight hit. It depends a bit on what framework you're using, what runtime is going on. I did some analysis a little while back, and I found it wasn't too bad. Obviously, if I'd say in most cases, people aren't actually worried about it, or should be worried about it. If you have some really crazy high throughput thing, then by all means, you should test it. And you can opt out of those features. And you can also like opt out of those features and then build your own sort of, say you have your own logging system and you have some log function that everything's going through, you can add that check in that method and do it sort of more explicitly.
Yeah, I believe there's a GitHub discussion where we talked about some of the perf impacts here with another library author. But,
yeah.
So feel free to join the discussion there. But yeah, I think it was 0 to 10% depending on the framework.
Yeah, in most cases it was less than 10%.
Okay, cool beans. And a follow-up question from what you said earlier. So are you planning to implement on Python, Java, PHP, or is this just for JavaScript?
Absolutely. The goal here is to be totally polyglot and work with everything. There's nothing stopping you right now from using it with those languages. You would just have to run, varlock run -- whatever, Python, your script. In the future, we would have type generation for different languages, so you can benefit from the same kind of type safety. And we'll probably have helpers, so like similar to that varlock autoload that just kind of does it all magically. We'll implement, a helper library for each language as well. If you're interested in using varlock in those languages, come join us. It's open source. We'd love your help. We're just waiting for the users to tell us what they need, and then we'll build it.
Yeah, you can join us on Discord or GitHub discussions, GitHub issues. Obviously, contributions are welcome in any form, be that issues or docs or code, of course.
Love. So I'm curious, what would happen if, let's say, we share a schema with our team, but then one person changes that schema? What does that look like?
So it's a committed file. I mean, it's just part of your PR would be changing that schema, right? So if you change the schema, so like let's say you added a new key, and this is a very common thing that I've seen happen before. You add a new key for some service, you add the default, you pass it around to everybody for like some test token. You go on like the staging environment, you add the new API key. Everything looks good. We're ready to deploy our new feature. We deploy our new feature. Oh, we forgot to put the key on the production server, right? Like I've seen it happen a bunch. So what would happen is like, instead of having this weird runtime explosion where it's like, oh, this thing doesn't work and everything's crashing, when the thing goes to get deployed to production or merged to production, you can have a step that says, hey, validate the config is valid. So, not only when it's like going through the sort of CI and developer lifecycle, but then also when the thing goes to actually boot that new thing that you've deployed, that validation runs, and hey, this thing is missing. It's going to now yell at you and hopefully stop your CI process from actually letting that thing get deployed fully.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure that would happen quite a bit on.
Yeah, I mean,
on teams, yeah.
Because the env example file is not used in the loading process, it's just very easy for these things to get out of sync. You forget to add it one place or the other all the time. This means like this never gets out of sync because your schema is part of the process of actually loading your environment.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't talked about yet is I think just yesterday or this morning, shipped the import decorator, so you can load from other files. So it makes it a little bit more dry, and it means in a monorepo you can have shared config. But in the future, that also opens up the ability to load like third-party schemas. So you can imagine I'm interacting with the GitHub API. I know I need these 4 environment variables. Let's import a standard GitHub schema, and it's already there, and the decorators and everything are already set because GitHub set them.
Nice. I would love to know how varlock could work with MCP servers, because there are so many servers, so many API keys. So managing that is turning out to be a headache. So yeah, I would love to see something on that, like personally, because I work with MCP servers all the time and I'm constantly doing demos. That's something I'm really keen to learn about. So I'll definitely be playing with varlock myself.
Yeah, there's an MCP.space.
Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine if you're building the actual server that just like
Yeah.
adding this extra leak detection is just, a nice way to give yourself some peace of mind that this AI is not going to accidentally leak your keys.
Exactly.
And if you're consuming this stuff, you can imagine, like, say you're building a bunch of demos all the time and you're always pulling, there's this API key you're using all the time. Like, well, now with this import feature, you could have that, say, in your home directory and just import it from there. So in each project, like, it's always just going and grabbing it from wherever you need it without having to copy paste it all over your machine.
Yeah. And does varlock also prevent the accidental committing of secrets?
Not yet. It's on it's like pretty high on the to-do list. We already know the values, so all we have to do is add a git commit.
Yeah.
So it's something that we are definitely going to add very soon.
Because honestly, I can see this exploding with vibe coders. If that's that one thing would be incredible. Yeah.
The other thing with the specifically for vibe coding and AI assisted coding is that getting these sensitive secrets. Obviously you can have a .env.local file, right, which is often where you might have something, secret key, whatever, don't leak me. So we want to help you get this out of plain text. So right now you can do that with this exec command and say read it from 1Password, but we also, this plugin system is going to let you pull it from a bunch of different places, including, have it encrypted right here. And we haven't released it yet, but we have a native Mac application that would let you encrypt it using the local secure enclave chip and puts it behind fingerprint reader. So like the 1Password experience, this would be like varlock, and this is like whatever, blah, 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 or some encrypted thing. When it goes to resolve that, it would talk to the Mac app, force you to scan your finger to decrypt it. So we just get it totally out of plain text all the time.
Yeah. Love.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't believe this didn't exist yet.
Same.
I mean,
so kudos.
One thing that's interesting, we've been working on this for quite a while now. We
Yeah.
had a previous product called Domino, which is the name of the company as well. Does a lot of similar things, but the schema you create is in TypeScript. And so we've been following this kind of space for, a year and a half now, I'd say. And every single week, someone else comes up with a new, hey, I built a library to help you manage your configuration and the schema and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's just constant, which clearly means that the tooling is not good enough for people. But the sort of change from what we did with Domino and varlock here is that, we wanted to meet people where they are. They're already using .env files. We don't want to introduce a new YAML, TOML, whatever, a new format, a new schema, something completely different, right? This way, it's like, we're just going to take what you're already doing. We're going to sprinkle a little bit of schema on top. And then if you want to go, you want to jump all the way in and start pulling everything from external sources and, all that, you can. But if you just want to get started, just add a little @required on top and see what happens.
Yeah, and from our testing with a lot of these AI tools too, you're going to be more successful when you've got strict types and a way that it can validate those. So if you say, you feed a context of our LLM's full.txt that's, on the website, the AIs do a pretty good job of writing the schema. And if you say you validate it by running varlock run or varlock load rather, it can see the structured output and then sort of remediate itself. And it works.
Nice. So Eric here says it could be when you install varlock, this updates our git ignore. I think a good feature it's encrypt, like Theo said.
Yeah. Yep. So when you do varlock init, it will make sure that your env schema is not ignored. I don't think we do other checks to make sure that you have ignored the .local files correctly. But ideally the git hook, which knows, hey, these are sensitive values and you're about to commit them, will stop you from doing the wrong thing there.
Yeah. We have a question here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
For encryption and decryption, which protocol is being used by varlock?
Yeah, so we use we use the new sort of node subtle crypto libraries to do. I can't even remember the name of it. It basically, it's using a asymmetric key, so a key pair, and then each item, it does like a key derivation using that key pair to create a new key and add a salt. It's this whole thing.
Wow.
It is modeled after what iOS or Swift, Apple is doing when you're doing like encrypted and decrypted secrets, and it's a common thing. I can't remember the acronym, but it is very secure. It's like elliptic curve cryptography with key pairs and extra salt and all that.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been great. It's been great learning about varlock. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about varlock as well. Be sure to check out the repo. I'll pop the link up here again. If you go to gh.io/varlock, it'll pop you on the repo page. So check out the docs, check out the issues, pick up an issue, work on it, submit your feedback, and get to securing your secrets a lot better, like a lot more efficiently. So it's made for humans, but AI can also use it, which is, I love the framing of that. So definitely, any last words you want to share with everyone?
Please, come in our Discord, chat with us. Please just test it out. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you like, what you don't. There's a few RFCs open. We're discussing sort of new features that we're planning to add. We would just love input. At the very least, input, and ideally even contributions. So please come chat with us.
And GitHub stars.
Yes, please stars.
GitHub stars. Yes. So go ahead, star varlock, use varlock, and have fun securing your secrets. This has been Open Source Friday, and we will see you next week, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Wait.
I see it, I want it, I get it.